Okay, so I've been working on these fountains for a while now and talking about them, so I thought it would be a good idea to show you what goes into the process and some of the tools I'm using and whatnot. So first I'll show you the tools and the setup, and then we'll go about pounding something in the copper. So I can move the camera and show you the tools I've got laid out. Okay, everything starts with the drawing. So we've got this drawing here, which is what I'm working on, the fountain. Today we're just going to make a tree. So you have to have the material you're working with, which in this case is 20 gauge copper. You can see it's flexible, but it's not that flexible. And we have our hammers, chasing hammers. Chasing hammers are different because they have this large head, because when you're using a punch, you're watching this end of the punch, which goes on the material, not this end, which is hit by the hammer. So if the hammer head was very small like this, chances are you'd miss and smash your fingers a lot. So they use a large head so that you can watch down here and pound and still hit the end of the punch. And these are the punches. These are the punches I've made, various sizes and shapes. Some are round, just round on the end. This one's a little more egg or football shaped on the end. And then we have liners, which are long, straight, and thin. And then I have a texture punch, things like that. The process really involves pounding with the hammer on the punch into the metal. But if you were to work on a hard surface like this, and you were to hit the punch with the hammer, the material, the copper, doesn't have anywhere to go, so it thins out, and that will cause the copper to curl. If you're making a bowl, for example, you might want that, but what we are wanting is essentially a flat piece with a raised section. So that means you need something that will give under this. Now if you're making jewelry and things with a lot of detail, you use what's called pitch, which is kind of a tarry-like substance that adheres to the back, and then it allows the copper to deform and yet hold a lot of detail on the punch. The harder the material, or the harder the pitch, the more fine detail you're going to get. You can work on something like this pine board, which will deform underneath. But what I've been doing, because as you can see from this picture, we're not actually trying to reproduce trees with every single pine needle. We're just getting the general shape of the tree, you know, a more artistic representation of the tree. So that means the fine details. I'm not trying to recreate each needle. So what I'm using is this big leather-filled sandbag, and the work goes on the sandbag, and the punches then are worked on this side of the material. And as you hit into the copper, the sand in the bag moves out of the way. Now the detail is limited because, one, the sand, and two, the leather. The leather is only going to be able to create a finite amount of detail. So before we can start working with the copper, I showed you, it's flexible, but it's not that flexible. So we need to do what's called annealing it. Now annealing it is heating it to the point at which the crystalline structure changes in the material. And all metals have different points at which that occurs. Copper, and we're not sure which exact alloy this is, but most copper alloys are going to be at or below about 900 degrees. And one of the interesting tidbits is that your general marker, your Sharpie, whatever, burns off at about 900 degrees. So if I put some marks on this copper, I will know I've annealed this when all the marks disappear. So I'm going to set this up, and we're going to start the torch and anneal this copper. I'm just using a regular 7-inch stainless steel. I don't want to push it too hard, but under the torch, it's going to slice almost like a star right from the heat. I want a nice burn right away. And then you can see as it cools, you get different shades of blue, and right around the heat extent, you get rainbow colors. So what's happening is this white patina on here is oxidation. We're trying to seal everything up. And then the copper keeps its dark scale. Okay, so now we've got that heated, that's all that takes. And now we just have to let it cool. I'll show you. You can't see. You can see how different it looks. You get an unannealed piece. So that's what we started with. That's what it is after heating. Now, the grain structure, we broke it down when we heated it like that, the grain structure of the material. Then as it air cools, it recrystallizes into nice large grains, which make it nice and soft. And it's still plenty hot here. So I'm going to turn off the camera, we'll let this cool, and then I'll come back. I'll show you how flexible this is, and then we'll put a design in here.